You is one of the most watched series in Netflix history. First releasing in 2018 on Lifetime before Netflix picked it up and turned it into a global phenomenon. Created by Greg Berlanti and Sarah Gamble, based on the novel You by Caroline Kepnes. The concept was simple, but deeply unsettling. What if the most dangerous person in your life genuinely believed that they were your soulmate? Well, in this case, that was Joe Goldberg. Joe starts as everything you'd want to find. Charming, well-read, attentive. A bookstore manager who quotes literature and notices things about you that nobody else does. On the surface, he's harmless, but it goes much deeper than that. What separates Joe from every other villain we've covered on this channel is that he doesn't think he's a villain at all. But here's the question this video will unfold. Is Joe Goldberg a monster who learned to act human, or is he something worse? A person who genuinely can't tell the difference between love and obsession. Here on the Dark Triad, we take characters from film and television and dissect who they really are. 3 psychological traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Together, they form what psychologists call the Dark Triad. Today you'll see that Joe Goldberg isn't just a stalker with good taste in books. He's one of the most complete Dark Triad cases we've ever analysed. Let's start with narcissism. Most people picture a narcissist as someone loud, someone who dominates every conversation, who needs to be the centre of attention, who makes everything about themselves. But that's the surface level version, you know, the kind you spot and walk away from. Whereas Joe Goldberg is something harder to identify. His narcissism is wrapped so convincingly in romance that the people closest to him never see it coming. He doesn't need to be the most important person in the room. He just needs to be the most important person in your life, and he'll decide that for you, whether you agree or not. And that's how it starts. From the very beginning, Joe and Beck exist in parallel in his mind. Her morning is his morning. Her day is his day. He has constructed an entire internal world where their lives are already intertwined. She just doesn't know it yet. Most people have had a crush. That feeling of wanting to know everything about someone. Joe takes that feeling and removes every boundary that should contain it. Watching her through a window isn't a violation to Joe. It's intimacy. He knows her routine better than she knows it herself. The gym, the coffee shop, even the route she takes home. Every detail is catalogued and memorized. Not out of malice in his mind, but because this is what Joe genuinely believes is love. And this is where Joe's narcissism reveals itself most clearly. Because he isn't just watching her, he's editing her. In his mind, he's already decided who she should be with, what's good for her, what she needs. He decides her professor is a problem. He decides her phone is a distraction. Joe has appointed himself the author of her life without her knowledge or consent. Even her social life becomes something Joe monitors and judges. Every interaction filtered through his own sense of what Beck deserves. And what Beck deserves, well in Joe's mind anyway, is him. Even at the end of her day, he's still there. He sneakily watches and waits, completely convinced that this is love. He has decided without her input that he is the most important person in Beck's world, and from that decision, everything else follows. And this is only the beginning, because what Joe has built in the physical world, he soon extends to every corner of Beck's life. There's something almost ordinary about Joe. In these moments, he looks like anyone else, a man coming home after a long day. Nothing about him signals what's coming next. But the moment he sits down, everything changes. He goes through everything intricately, every photo, every caption, building a picture of her life that she has no idea he's constructing. His internal voice doesn't sound like a stalker, it sounds like someone falling in love. And that's the most unsettling part. Joe genuinely cannot tell the difference between the two. She's texting, laughing, living her life with no idea that someone has already decided that she belongs to him. This is narcissism at its most insidious point. Joe doesn't want Beck, he wants the ownership of her story, her social media, her routine, her relationships. All of it becomes information he uses to position himself as the one person who truly understands her. He's not learning about her because he loves her. He loves her because learning about her makes him feel powerful. And that distinction is everything. The reality is far darker. Joe doesn't see Beck as a person with her own autonomy and her oe choices. He sees her as a story he gets to write, and in that story, he's always a hero. That is what makes Joe Goldberg a narcissist. Not arrogance, but possession disguised as love. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe, as it genuinely helps his channel more than you know. Now, let's get back to it. Joe's narcissism explains the obsession, but obsession alone doesn't build the life he wants around Beck. For that, Joe needs something else entirely. That brings us to Machiavellianism. The term comes from Niccolò Machiavelli, a 16th century Italian philosopher whose core belief was simple, that the ends always justify the means. In short, this means that strategy, deception and manipulation aren't signs of weakness or even moral failure. They're just tools, and the people who refuse to use them are the ones who lose. Joe didn't read Machiavelli, he just lived it naturally. Some would say he was born like this. What makes Joe's version so difficult to see coming is that it never looks like manipulation. It looks like fate, like romance. He's always in the right place at the right time. Joe doesn't pull the strings obviously, he sets scenes, then waits for you to walk into them. This looks like a coincidence, a man taking the same route as someone he barely knows. But with Joe Goldberg, there's no such thing as coincidence. There's only strategy that hasn't been identified yet. And here's where it gets interesting, because Joe's internal monologue in this very moment says everything you need to know about how his mind works.
What if some sicko had followed you down here?
Just read this again. Joe's following her. Joe's the sicko. And yet in his own mind he's framing himself as her protector from people just like himself. That single line is a window into the entire architecture of his psychology. He has completely rewritten his own role in the story before it's even finished. To Beck, this is the most frightening and strangely romantic moment of her life. A stranger who just happened to be there, who risked himself without hesitation. He held her while she was at her most vulnerable. To Joe, this is the opening move. Whether Joe engineered this moment or simply recognized the opportunity when it appeared doesn't actually matter. What matters is what he does with it. He doesn't just save her, he positions himself. In one moment he goes from a stranger, watching her through a window, to the man who saved her. That's Machiavellianism, working exactly as intended. Beck never stood a chance of seeing him clearly after this. How do you suspect the man who pulled you off the train tracks? How do you question the motives of someone who was covered in your vomit and still stayed? Joe knew the answer to both of these questions before she even asked them. But Machiavellianism still requires some calculation. There's still some form of logic to it, however twisted that logic might be. Psychopathy removes even this requirement. Psychopathy isn't rage, it's the absence of the internal voice that tells most people to stop. The absence of guilt before, during, and after. And by the time Joe identifies Peach as a threat to his relationship with Beck, that voice is completely silent. On the surface, this is a man on a morning run. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming, just someone getting his exercise on a quiet day. But watch this shift. The moment he sees her, the run changes its purpose entirely. He isn't jogging anymore, he's hunting. No hesitation, no moment of doubt where he reconsiders what he's about to do. Just a decision executed cleanly, and then distance put between himself and the consequences as quickly as possible. Most people in that moment, even people capable of violence, would feel something. Some trace the weight of what just happened. Joe feels none of that. And before the dust has even settled, Joe has already rewritten the story. His internal voice moves so quickly from action to justification that there is no gap in between where guilt could exist. That's his psychopathy in real time. It's the mind protecting itself from consequences it was never capable of feeling in the first place. Peach didn't threaten Joe's life, she threatened his access to Beck. And in Joe Goldberg's world, those two carry the same exact weight. If the attack on Peach shows us Joe's psychopathy in a moment of violence, what comes next shows us something even more revealing. Because violence can be explained away, rage can be contextualized. What cannot be explained is what Joe does when there's no pressure or threat. Just a woman he claims to love locked in a box asking him why. She isn't leverage, nor a problem to be solved. The person Joe has told himself he loves more than anything. She is terrified, and he put her there. When he approaches her, he's calm, reassured, almost tender. The contrast between her panic and his stillness isn't unsettling, but diagnostic. Because a person with any emotional connection to someone they claim to love would be destabilized by this scene. They'd struggle to look her in the eye. At the minimum, they'd feel the weight of what they'd done pressing down on them. But Joe feels none of that. He doesn't get defensive. Joe speaks to her the way you'd speak to someone who was being slightly unreasonable, as if her rage is a problem, as if her fear is an overreaction to something perfectly logical. But in Joe's mind, he has a reason for everything he's done, and reasons, to him, are the same as justification. He just walks away, no comfort offered, just a decision that the conversation is over and an exit is taken, while she screams behind the glass. That moment is the truest version of Joe Goldberg we ever see. Strip away the charm, the monologues, the romantic framing the show wraps around him, and this is what remains. A man that can look at someone who he loves suffering because of him and feel nothing strong enough to make him stay. That's psychopathy. The simple, quiet, devastating absence of the very thing that makes us all human. Joe Goldberg is perhaps the most deceptive Dark Triad case we've covered on this channel. Even after everything you've just seen, the stalking, the manipulation, the cage, the violence, there are people who finish watching you and still root for him. Joe is designed to make you question your own judgment, and Penn Badgley plays him so convincingly that the discomfort sneaks up on you long after the episode ends. So what do you make of Joe Goldberg? Does the charm hold up now that you've seen underneath it? File 8 is coming. See you there.